So weird. Okay, so it's August 23rd. We've been at this for how many months?
7 months.
Yeah, almost every other weekend for 7 months.
Almost every other weekend, I think in one solid week on spring break.
Oh yeah, and it's a gorgeous day here today.
Oh,
Absolutely
my
gorgeous.
gosh. When it is 62 to 65 at the beach, it is gorgeous. It feels like 75. It is just absolutely amazing. So we can stand on here and talk about outside. Ian's done a ton of work outside, but instead we're going to focus on stuff I did. Come on in. So here's the living room. So this weekend we finally put first coat of paint on this room, and I think it looks fabulous. It's a color called Rattan from Do It Best, and I think it looks good with the couch. And God, I'm so surprised. The paint is really nice. It went on like butter. So I think the place looks great. And then over here is where we had that really ugly space. That was the door and the huge variation in height. So we had this really rough. I had to dig out door trim and stuff that was buried in the wall. And I think it varied between a 1/4 inch and 3/4 of an inch dip here. So what's happened over the last 3, 4, 5 visits is I keep skimming this, putting a little more, building up, until finally we're here and it looks pretty darn good. So the first coat's on this room. So right up here, one of the other things we've done is we finally filled in the crown molding. There was a piece missing here, and the block in the corner. And they had an old shelf that ran up here. It was all tore out. That's when we discovered what a horrible mess it was. Cleaned this all up, filled in the crown molding, and got it all caulked and set. The next step is to paint the crown. So we need to put a second coat of paint on this room. We need to do all the crown work. We have to paint that, and we have to paint the ceiling. And this room is going to look pretty darn good. So that's this room. Come on into the space. I'll show you what's done. This is really rough. Had a big gap here between the ceiling and such. It just looked awful, and too much eye clutter. And when you look at it, it was really tough to see. So we do all that. We sheetrock the whole thing. There used to be a window here, framed in over it, and drywalled this whole wall, and it's looking pretty good. Didn't have time to put a top coat on this, but we have got the first coat with the nice corners on. There was no corners in this, and anywhere in the house on any of the drywall. Very strange. But new corners, so we'll clean it up next time we come, put a top coat on this, let it set, and that one will be about ready for prime and paint. So that is a lot of work. And over here, what we did is we tore out the old cabinet. It was they made it out of a couple of cabinet doors and a surface. It's like, yeah, it's out of here. We tore that out, set Anne's desk up here so she could work. And she stayed the week down here. Although she did tell me it was really hard to work because right outside the window here is this beautiful fuchsia tree, which is constantly visited by hummingbirds. And they're constantly coming in here, drinking out of little fuchsia flowers. It is just wonderful. Love the space. We don't know exactly how we're going to finish this off when we get to the kitchen time. We're going to do this fall. It's looking more like spring, but we know we're going to have a window here based on what we've discovered now. We're going to keep window here, looking at the fuchsia tree. So that's a lot of work we've done downstairs. We haven't taken a video in a while, but let me show you some real work that took place, which is why we couldn't get some other stuff this weekend upstairs. So come on, let's go. So kind of a mess up here, but come on in and see a bigger mess. So this is the purple room, which apparently nobody wanted to sleep in because it was just too creepy. So our daughter Mia started demoing it. She demoed out the walls last week or 2 weeks ago. I can't remember. Tore all the walls out on the sides, and then Peter, our son, came down this weekend, and we tore out the ceiling and vaulted it. So we vaulted the ceiling in here. You can see the new structural 2x6s with the gussets up there, and it's all set for drywall on this side. I have to do some insulation, and then we'll hang drywall there, insulate the walls. Get that all set. And we've got we ran additional power, so there was only one outlet in this whole space. So we dropped another outlet here. We're going to put one on the other side, and one over here. So we'll have one on every wall of the room. Amazing. And then I have some work to do. We would have finished a lot more, except we ran into a couple weird things. You always do in these things, right? So archaeological dig. We were digging up here. I was trying to pull out the power for the light fixture because we're going to put a fan light combo because now we have this nice vaulted ceiling. And what I found was a bundle of wires with tape and wire nuts and stuff buried in insulation. No junction box whatsoever. Really dangerous. We found 2 of them actually. And so that kind of put everything on hold. Had to stop. Had to put it, 2 junction boxes going. One's in behind and this big one here. Brought them all together in a junction box that's safe and properly wired, so we're not going to see any fires off of that, thank God. There's another junction box over here we found that was buried in the wall. We'll be opening it up so we can get to it from the other space. So these are some of the things we find as we go through these spaces, and you do archaeological digs on these old homes where people may have really had good intentions that they were doing, but didn't necessarily know what they were doing. I really caution you, if you start doing this kind of work, always, do a little research on YouTube. If you don't know, call a professional. Most of them will give you advice for free and let you know, like, oh yeah, I'd try that, or don't do that. Let us come take care of it for you. It's super dangerous, or you could cause damage to your home. So that's a precautionary tale because, again, super dangerous. And these buried wires, hot wires, every one of them was hot, buried in insulation, could have caused a fire, taking the house down. So that's one thing here. Same thing over here. So the tricky thing here is, turns out, I won't talk too long about this, but previously we had these big boxes that came down in this room, like right about to here, actually, and huge. We didn't know what they were. We thought, oh, it's got to be structural support for the roof. We can't do it. Opened it up. Turned out they had just built a box here because they didn't know how to handle this beam. And so it was so low that my son, who is Peter's about 6'2", I think, 6'1", 6'2", he had to duck under it quite another inch or 2 down. So now he can just walk clean under these. This one here and this one over here. He can just walk right under them, no problem whatsoever. But even these are going to get cut back some. So we're going to make these shorter. It gets a little tricky here. I've got to figure out some angles and how I'm going to actually frame it in properly to get the drywall up. But wow, it's going to be fabulous. And this vaulted ceiling, I just love it. I think Ann's going to love it as her office as well. But we'll seal it all up. We'll get some drywall, insulation in. It's going to be a beautiful room. Oh yeah, one other thing while I'm talking about it. As we were running wire, so what we did is if you can see the wires running up here, we ran some wire up, down, and down through the wall, drilled through the base here to get an outlet in. Through this process, we discovered that the window sills are actually rotted out on these 2 windows. So that's an unfortunate thing. I can actually touch the wood and it's just, I don't want to push too hard, my hand will go right on through. So that's got to get all torn out before we finish this room. So next thing is, you know how it is. It's the other thing. One thing in a project leads to another. And so this is one of those things, like the electrical was one of those things. When you open up these old projects and old homes, you don't know what you're going to find. We found downstairs, for instance, we found a window without a header. May not seem like much, but if it's left to its own devices, in about 10 to 15 years, you start seeing it sag. And then any window you put in there will be breaking. It will actually break the window or prevent it from opening and closing. Not a good thing. And so these, like I said, we opened up this, discovered the windowsills are bad in this wall, and so I have to tear this out, take out, and put in 2 new windows and a new sill. But really, really great stuff. So instead of being maybe a 2-weekend project just to do some fresh drywall and stuff, turned to a much bigger project. But I think the end result's going to be absolutely amazing. So those are the big projects for the weekend. Again, we'll get you updates on this one as it goes. It's a big one. One other thing. Actually, before I let you go, funny thing, we discovered that there was a hole here and a meshing hole on the other side where the roof comes down, the dormer attaches to the roof. And our neighbor says, oh yeah, that's where we see squirrels go in. Great. So, because whoever framed it forgot to block the holes where the dormer meets the roof. So those are blocked. They're not vents. They're not meant to be vents. Those are blocked. and sealed up, so no more squirrels in through this particular dormer. Although we do have a little squirrel buddy who comes in from the front side. We'll be taking care of that too. But that'll be in a future video when I have 5 more minutes to work on it. See you next time.